Okay, we're back with our piece from the oven. It's cooled. I heat set it for 270 degrees for 10 minutes, and I'll read to you what the instructions say about that in just a minute. But I don't, see if this end, let me find a dry wedge. I don't feel anything rubbing off. So if we go across the belly button, nothing's coming off. So we're good. I used to do wet Q-tip tests on paints, but I learned a long time ago, even from the Genesis company, that all paints have a little bit of, even Heatset paints have a little bit of time that they need about 24 hours for the pigments to completely settle into the vinyl. So with all of them, you can get some slight staining on a Q-tip. So you can't always go by that. But if it doesn't rub off with your fingers, and this is not doing that, it seems to be very stable. So I'm very pleased with it. It looks good so far. Let me read you what the website says. It says to heat set these paints, it gives you instructions that for the paints, using a temperature between 265 and 270 degrees Fahrenheit and leaving it in for 10 to 12 minutes seems to work best. We have tried 8 to 10 minutes with pretty good results. We encourage you to experiment with the time and temperatures on your own oven. And then it says we encourage you to use the Gemini heat set thinner to thin the colors. It is not solvent-based, non-flammable, non-toxic, and was designed for this line. It is compatible with Genesis. And then when you read what they say about their varnishes and mediums, that is a little bit different. On the matte varnish, it says using a temperature between 265 and 270 Fahrenheit, leaving it in for 12 to 15 minutes seems to work best. We know that 15 minutes at 270 works good, and have also tried 12 minutes with pretty good results. Experiment with your oven. And that doesn't surprise me, because even with Genesis, I always had to leave mine in, or I still have some Genesis, I'll do it 12 minutes, and I'll do that a couple of times, actually, even. So what I'm going to do now, let's see, I'm going to slide. Let's see if I can slide things around where y'all can still see it. So I want to pull this paint over here so that I can work a little bit more in front of myself, and then I'm going to slide the camera over a little bit. I think that's what I need to do. Let's try that. See what you're seeing now. Okay. Does that show you my camera and my workspace? Maybe we can see it a little bit better. Okay, so what I'm going to do is try a couple of models, and I'm going to just go ahead and test out the limits in terms of the way I would paint with Genesis. I'm going to test it to that kind of limit. So with Genesis, I normally would sandwich a couple of model colors before I would heat set. So I'm going to take, let me get a brush. What I want to do now is to take the yellow ochre, and I want to do a model of yellow ochre. So I'm just going to paint that on my wedge. Now the yellow ochre was the one that has, you'll have to go back and refer to the beginning again. Some of them have just their thinning oil in them. Some of them have the oil and the thinning medium, and some of these I put some solvent in them. You'll notice in my palette here that the blue is starting to kind of separate out a little bit. That happens just about every paint brand that I've used. Something about blue pigments have a tendency to separate out because they're a heavier pigment or something like that. I read that a long time ago. I can't remember the exact reasoning. But if you stir it back up, it just got, it emulsifies right back together with no problem. So just know that. And the same thing over here where I mixed up the color, where I put a little yellow in with the blue. That blue pigment is a heavier pigment. So, alrighty. So anyway, getting back to the, so I'm just going to put a little bit of that yellow ochre on there. I think I just smashed, got some of the, let me get a little of this thinner. I just got a little of the, one of those colors anyway. Remember I told y'all I made a mess at the beginning. Smeared it on my belly plate. So let me get that right off. I'm just using a little citrus thinner for that. Alrighty, so here we go. So I'm just going to take my yellow, and I'm going to see if that looks like I got enough color in it. I think I need to add a little more yellow ochre color to that, so let me add a little. And I'll just dip it in there. I wasn't sure because some yellow ochres are darker than others. Sometimes you can get too dark. And just to give that a little bit more of a flow, I'm going to add some of their thinning into that. Alrighty, stir that up. That should give me a little more color, I think. I think that's where I got that paint from a while ago. There we go. That's, you're not going to see a lot of this on the camera. Maybe you'll see a little bit of it because I don't want it to look like a jaundiced baby, but I want to have enough color that you can tell I put some on it. And what I'm doing is just kind of changing the overall skin tone as I build different colors. So you can see there's where I painted it. And as it gets on over there, you can see it's not on there. So let me go ahead and do the whole belly plate right quick. And yellow ochre is one of those colors that when I use it, I use minimal amounts, and I want it to be very subtle. And I usually don't use it every round of colors unless I was building an AA baby or something like that. But for me, I'll do typically 1, 2 at the absolute most. And if I'm dealing with a vinyl that's got a strong yellow undertone, I won't do any yellow ochre. So you have to kind of balance that out when you're looking at your vinyls. You want to look at the color of your vinyl. If you've got a real peachy vinyl, that means you've got a lot of red and orange in that vinyl and a lot of warmness in that vinyl. You want to stick to your cool colors. You want to stick to your blues and purples and berries and stay away from your warm reds. And if you've got a vinyl that is very yellow in color, then you want to not add a lot of yellow and just stick to your reds. And your and then again, you be careful that the reds you use are not too warm, because that warm red mixed with that yellow vinyl is going to cast off an orange tone at times. So you may have to kind of control that with a little blue as well. So we'll go over this right up there where I got a little bit dark. So now I've got that yellow all over it. So what I'm going to do at this point is, instead of heat setting it, I'm going to go ahead and pounce a model color over it, and let's just see what we get. If they smudge together a lot or not. Let's try. Let's see, let me rinse my brush out. So this first color we did, that's pretty thick. I think I'm going to add, now that one was the one that I added just the Gemini thinner to it. Thinning, and I'm going to go ahead and add some of my citrus thinner to that because I want to thin it on out some. Now, once again, I know a lot of these paint companies want, are trying to get us away from using solvents, and this is a personal choice. I feel comfortable using the Eco House Extra Mild Citrus Thinner because the citrus oil in the mineral spirits of the citrus thinner sits on top of the mineral spirits, keeping them from evaporating into the air and causing allergic reactions, which I was very prone to have problems with in the past. And but you do need to be careful that you don't get it all over your hands, and you wash your hands well between uses, painting like layers and stuff, because you don't want that can be absorbed into the skin, so you want to be careful about that. All right, let's see if this is going to be too stark. I think it'll be as I go, it'll be okay. And I'll pounce back over where I started to kind of tone that back down a bit. That looks really nice. I have to say, I am most impressed so far. One thing I want to try is I want to play with that time a little bit, because I think I mentioned earlier that I've kind of found a happy medium between the other brands of paints that I've tried and even with my Genesis. And that is that if I heat at 275 for 9 minutes, I'm going up a 5 degree on the temperature from the 270, or 10 degrees from the 265. But I found that doing it that way and then doing it for 9 minutes, I'm able to give it a quick hot blast, but yet not have it in the oven as long as 10 and 11 and 12 minutes. Now, like I said, except with the exception of the varnishes, those you have to bake those longer and a little more, sometimes more than once. All right, what do y'all think? Might need a little bit more down in there. I was looking at my new grandbaby the other day, and she has a lot of modeling on her. She's 2 months old now, and just the sweetest. Her name is Caroline, and we always sing to her and call her Sweet Caroline. And I mean, she has truly lived up to her name. She has just been the sweetest, best little baby. She doesn't cry unless she's really in need of something, or upset, or hungry, or has a wet diaper or something. I mean, if she cries, now she does have colic sometimes in the evening. Well, actually, probably every evening that's the time when she gets colicky. But all right, I really like the way that looks right there. So I'm going to pop this in the oven, and just for my own curiosity, I'm going to try 275 for 9 minutes, and we'll rub it when it comes out and see if that comes off or not. And if it does, then I'm going to go around this belly button right here where I didn't get right up at it. Then we will, I'm just going to stipple wrap it in there a little bit. Then we will, we'll put it back in for a longer time if 275 at 9 doesn't work. Alrighty, see you in a bit. Hey everyone, we're back. I've just finished heat setting and cooling the model layer that I just did. And I did heat set this at 275 degrees for 9 minutes, and it's fine. Now, the only thing about going at 275 degrees is that some vinyls, the vinyl itself will gain a little sheen, and this one may have a tad. So I don't know if I would heat set every layer that high. Not that that's super high, but I mean, you play with it in your oven. I think if I were, so I would say that they said that they could do 265 to 270 between 8 to 10 minutes. I'm going to say 270 for 9 minutes is probably going to be perfect in my oven. But I was also, even though I said I don't do wet Q-tip tests, just out of curiosity, I thought, what the heck, I want to try it. And I did try it a while ago. I wet both ends before I got in here, and I'm not getting any lift off at all. So these paints are very well set. Probably, to be honest with you, set the best of any paints that I've tried to date. And I have to be honest, I'm pretty blown away. I'm not finding anything I dislike about these at this point. So let's try another model layer. Let's see here. So I'll lay that aside. We'll take the other side of this one that I used earlier to blot with, and I'll pluck it out. One of my friends was telling me, she said that she was laughing at me, got a chuckle out of the fact that I cut up my wedges into little pieces when I'm doing these testings, and I don't know what to do with my, there they are, and whatnot, and she's like, but she said, and then she had to buy some new wedges because she had ran out and hadn't bought any in a while, and she said, now I see why you're cutting yours up so. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, this stuff starts to add up. And these buyers just don't get it. When they look at a doll, they're like, oh, you got that kit on sale for X dollars. You should be able to sell it to me, you know, this amount. And it's like, there's a lot more than just that goes into this. So, yeah, anyway. So this was the color I put on. The first time was this one in this well. That's more of a blushing color, I think, for me, that lighter red. So what I want to do is look at this quinacridone, what what was it, quinacridone crimson, and I'm going to try a model layer with that. I think I want to try that. And then after that, we'll decide if we need another yellow layer. Sometimes I'll do a blue layer, but mostly I don't do a lot of blue layers. Once again, I don't like a lot of that dark blue on my babies, but we might do a blue layer, we might not. I'm keeping this pretty simple. So here we go. And this one I'm doing a little more starkly. I'm just pouncing her on. And these are going to be, I do more of a blended model like this. I don't do so much the polka dot looking marks. Sometimes I have done that, and I'm not saying never, but typically this is more my style of modeling. I call that a blended model, and that's where I don't just pounce and lift, but I do like come kind of back over it. I do have some of the model sponges from Desiree Double, and I love those. And if you are looking for more of a distinct circular model, those that she has do really wonderful at that. And there have been times that I've used, that I will use that for that look, but then again, I still wind up pouncing back over it some because I just like things to have a blended look. That's just me. So I don't know. But anyway, that's how I roll. So we're going to get down through here. Just doing this really quickly. My battery's starting to die on my phone, or not die, but getting low, so I don't want to lose battery before I get through all this. Looks pretty good. I got some right here on this side. And you can see as I've added these colors that they have blended. Our original crease colors are much more subtle looking now because we've got other color on top of them. And the same with the belly button. So at this point, you might need to touch them up a bit. You might decide you do. I think I would like to touch mine up. Now, originally I did mine with that purplish looking color. So let's just grab this. And this is where layering color on top of color doesn't bother me at all. I think it works fine. Just to keep on painting at this point, because I don't think I'm going to be doing so much that I'm going to worry about lifting anything else up. So I'm just bringing back that crease color out a little more distinct again. Got a hair on that brush. So today is my day off, and I'm supposed to be working tomorrow, and I was supposed to have my dog at the groomer today, but my groomer had a family emergency and I had to cancel. And she wanted to reschedule till tomorrow, and I was like, well, I work part-time 3 days a week, so I can't do that. Well, my boss was not feeling well yesterday, and I got a phone call today from one of the other girls that he called in today and asked to have all the patients rescheduled. He's got the flu, so he's closing the office tomorrow. So I will be off tomorrow as well, which means I can take my dogs to my dog, I only have one, to the groomer tomorrow. I have a little turkey, which, by the way, I keep a nursery gate up over my doorway here in my nursery. She's not allowed in this room. And then, but the other thing is today's election day, so I can stay up. Well, I was going to say I can stay up and watch as much of the results of the election as we can find out tonight. But then again, it might also have to do with as much as I can tolerate, because it just depends on how this thing goes. Alrighty. That looks better. Let me turn it around. And then I'm going to take that sponge I was modeling with and just kind of lightly go back across it to blend any harsh edges. And then I want to go back over the belly button. So this is a baby belly plate for a baby that has already lost her umbilical stump. And so there would be no black residue on the belly button, to my way of thinking. But it might still have a little darkness around it, more accentuated color. That's what I like to do anyway. So that's why I'm going with this purple. And go back through that crease again. And then right under here I can see I missed a little bit with the modeling. I'm going to just kind of dot a few little model dots under there. And take this and blend it. Alrighty, so that looks pretty darn good to me. So I'm going to go pop it in the oven this time. I'm going to try 270 for 9 minutes. We're going to see how that does. And if that heat sets, then that'll probably be, for my oven anyway, where I will choose to keep it for these paints. And looking at that, it looks pretty good. I might blush it after this and then go back. Let's go ahead. I'll tell you what I'm going to do while I'm looking at it. I'm going to go ahead and accentuate the veins just a little bit. Let me rinse out my brush. Take a little of this blue. I'm just thinking that I might want to make a few of those veins pop a little more, so we're just going to go over that. Just ever so lightly. Some of them kind of got faded out as we got to coloring. Let's see, and I'm going to take my little, this is like what they call a, can you see that, a deer foot brush. It's flat but angled. It's by Princeton. I got this at, I actually got it on a clearance rack at Hobby Lobby, and I really like it. You can just kind of pounce over things with it, just to blend stuff. All right, let me go over here and do these veins a little bit as well. Take my little deer brush, deer foot. Kind of lighten those, and then I'll just take this little model sponge that I had a residue of that last model I used and just kind of go back over, right over what I just did to blend it all back together. I'm all about the blend. I want a little back there. Blend that one a little more. Alrighty, now like that. Alright, I'm gonna go pop this back in the oven. I'll be back. Okay, here we are after this last bake. We now have 2 layers of model on the baby's belly. I touched up the veins, touched up the creases, touched up the little belly button. I'm pretty happy with it the way it is. I think the only thing it might, I don't feel like I need to add any yellow at all. I think it's plenty. I mean, here's your back side, and here's the difference in the color. You can see the one yellow layer I did was plenty enough. I don't really want to add any blue because I don't want a lot of blue heaviness on it. I think I might do a little light blushing and then bake that, and then we'll do the varnish. And what I've been told about the varnish is you have to really pounce it thin, so that's something we need to take a little time on. So what I'm going to do right now is varnish, not varnish, do that really light layer of blush that I wanted to do. And this is, you know, you can do this any number of ways. Sometimes I paint it on with a paintbrush and kind of pounce it. Sometimes I take a, I think today I'm just going to take a wedge and piddle around, and let's just see what we get. So for this color, the final blushing, I'm going to use this regular red that's a little bit more warmer red. I don't know how intense this is going to come out, though. It looks a little... These are a little more rich in color than any of the other paints I've tried. The BC Heatset paints were very rich, but when you put them on and heat set them, they actually heat set a little lighter than I was expecting. And the Irresistible Heatset paints were the lightest in the pigment color of any I've tried. So if you're one that likes to build a lot of really light layers and go that way, then a lot of people like that. So I think what I'm going to do with this, since that is really red, I'm going to pounce that on my paper towel before I touch it onto this belly plate. All right, so let's see. And there's, you know, there's no right or wrong way. I mean, it's just, this is probably would be better if it was rounded, but I'm just going to put that on there and take my little deer thing and kind of smudge it out. Get a little blushing in that area. I think that's about the best way to do this. Basically, you want the fatty areas to have a little more red, rosy look to them. So that's what I'm doing. Oh, the power just went out here. Did y'all see that? It went dark. Don't know why that happened. Election day power outage. Oh, that's exciting. Oh, gosh. Let me get a little more of this. Not sure why. Crazy things in this world. Now, this is probably very haphazard. Some of y'all are probably sitting over here in absolute shock as to what I'm doing, but I'm just kind of in a hurry at this point, trying to get on to being able to do the varnish before my camera goes dead. So this is just kind of a softening of what I just pounced on when I go over it and kind of just smudge it in. So that's what I've got. That blotchy baby look. And I like that, actually. It's pretty good. One thing I want to do is go down here around the belly crease. I do this around nose creases and anywhere, any place in your baby that you have some indentions. You don't want to leave lines of lacking color, so I always dot some in there and then go back and pounce it down a little bit. So let's see how that looks. Pretty good. All right, let me go bake her, and then when I come back, we will be varnishing. Oh, and by the way, the 270 degrees for 9 minutes worked great. Okay, I'm back from my final bake where I did the blushing on the baby and baked it. And this is what or I say baby, belly plate. This is what it looks like. It has a slight bit of sheen from being baked. And the thinner vinyl, you know, of the belly plates does show a little sheen anyway. There may be coming a hint of sheen from the paint. I couldn't tell you. I mean, it's not like a super shiny. So whatever is there, it's not obtrusive to me, and we're about to mat it. But also everything's been baking at 270 Fahrenheit for 9 minutes, and that's been working fine. When I do my Q-tip test, I don't get any kind of, like I said, I'm pushing it to the limit doing a wet Q-tip test, but nothing comes off. So we're great. I'm really happy. So now let's go ahead and varnish. And the instructions that I've been given by those that tested this, excuse me, and what they said on the Bountiful Baby forum is that you need to be sure to, that's purple, I gotta be sure I don't get that everywhere. You need to be sure to apply it thinly. So I've got a wedge here. I need to cut the end of my wedge off because it's got that ridge in it. So here's my wedge. Make sure I'm in the camera here. Alrighty. And here's my thinning medium. Let me get a clean brush. looks good. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to, and we're not going to paint it on the vinyl, because sometimes when you do that with varnishes and then try to pounce it, that makes them not come out as matte. So what I'm going to do is paint a thin layer. I need to stir that first. I just opened it, so let me stir it. And I had not pulled all the seal off because I was going to get that off of the lid too. I'll get that off in a minute, but let's stir this. So this, let me see, can you see it? So this is a clear, frosted looking varnish. It's not white. So that right off the bat is exciting, because you don't have to worry about there being white opaqueness from the varnish. It is thinner than the original Genesis matte varnish was, by far thinner. It's more like the Genesis thinning medium was in consistency. So now that I've got that on there, I'm going to just wipe it on my wedge and throw my toothpick in the trash, and then go ahead and get some more varnish off. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to, let's see, are you in the camera here, Angie? I'm trying to see if I am. I think I am. I'm going to paint a thin layer of the varnish right across my wedge, like that. And then I'm going to pounce it on my baby, or belly, or whatever you want to call it. And so we're going to pounce that out very thinly, because I'm told you have to have a thin layer. You don't want it thick. So we're going to pounce that out. And then we're going to move on. Paint that across. And just try to work in sections here. Let's see, where did I stop? I'll try to pounce that down in those little creases. Now, normally when I'm doing varnishing, I do take, I'm going to lay that down. I think I can pounce it better with it laying down. I take my brush and kind of go down the creases just ever so lightly like that, and then try to go back and pounce them out. So that way you got a little in there. Stipple it down in there. Alrighty. This is not hard to pounce. I don't know about anybody else, but for me, and having all the issues that I have in my tendon right here that hurts a lot, which is why I don't root anymore. The Genesis matte varnish is so hard. The original Genesis is so hard for me to get it pounced out thinly, because it's so thick, so very thick. And it would make my hand hurt doing it. Get that up in there. So I'm going to take like the edge of my wedge and kind of press it down in those creases to kind of, because I've learned that pouncing varnish aids in matting it as well. And that's another reason why it's not, you know, you don't want to paint it on too much. And as you can see, I'm just using really scant amounts here. I'm basically pouncing it till it looks dry. That's what I'm doing. So, and then I'm going to go down to the last little section here. So I'm going to paint the rest of what I had on my brush right there on my wedge. And I barely even took a smidge out of this jar all total. Try to get around the edges here. And down in those creases. Pounce, pounce, pounce. And I just keep pouncing until I'm not seeing any wetness. And we're going to see if this works when we heat set it to do it like that. That's just my mindset of pouncing thin. Because if I pounce it until I don't see a sheen. Right up under that belly button is a little, see if I can get it right there. And then I'm going to just fold that ever so slightly so that I can get that up in there. There we go. Alrighty. She looks to be sufficiently covered. The other thing I'm noticing is that the little bit of sheen that I was seeing in the creases and all that I thought might be coming a little bit from the paint or maybe from the heat, I wasn't sure. That's all gone now. So that tells me that I've pretty well got it covered good. So this is to bake it 12 to 15 minutes at 270 degrees. So I'm going to start with 12 minutes and see how it looks. Because on the belly plate, if it was a thicker kit, I might go the full 15 minutes. But on a belly plate, because they're thinner, usually they bake faster because the heat goes through them quicker. And I also have a wooden dowel system in my oven that I heat set on and prop my limbs up on, and so I can lay this across it so the air is circulating through both sides. All right, so I will come back and show you what the final results look like. Okay, here we are after baking the matte varnish. I want to preface this by saying it is dark. I've been working at this all day long, so I'm hoping the lighting is going to show the coloring close to accurate, but it may not be. But right now, color's not so much what we're looking at, although it would be nice to see it, I guess. But what we're really looking at is the matte finish, and it is very nicely matted. You do feel a slight bit of texture, not a lot of texture. It's not rough. It's just you can tell it's been matted. There were a couple of spots I missed around the belly button. I didn't get it matted quite as well, and there was a little spot up here. But even that's okay, because you would kind of, expect a baby's belly button to look a little different maybe. So it's not that, anyway, you just have to be careful when you're trying to pounce all this out thin, not to miss areas, which can happen. But if you do, you just pounce a little more on and heat set it again. I did heat set this for 12 minutes at 270 degrees. And let me do the little pinch test for you. You can see it does not crack. And it's worked out really well. So I'm very, very, very pleased with this. All right, guys. Hope you've enjoyed this and have a good evening.